Hello, School Transportation Nation. It's Tony Corpin with you this week with Mr. Ryan Gray. Ryan, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Tony. Nation, as always, it's great to be with you.
All right, we're going to be talking all things school transportation. We got some great headlines. We got the NSTA Contractor of the Year. We've got some EPA GHG announcements. There's a bunch of other great news stories, all brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software, and IC Bus. The next generation can change everything. We also have a special guest. We're speaking with Nashawn Craig, Assistant Director of Transportation and Fleet. And that's at Taylor Schools in Michigan. And Nashawn is a frequent visitor to ST and Expo, TSD. He also, I think, has like a side gig as a photographer because he's always sending us great photos, Ryan.
Exactly, yes. It's always great to get photos. We love them. Can never get enough. So certainly if you have great photos of your operations, your people, we have back to school. It's kicking off right now nationwide. It's always tough to get pictures of the kiddos, but if you have those showing the children getting back that are all, the parents have okayed it, it's gone through your school district, then we'd love those as well.
Yeah, we want to get you guys all prepped up for the new school year. I know your heads are down. You're looking at it thinking, gosh, we're weeks away. Some people, a couple weeks. I'm 3 weeks away. Other people into September. Some people start, late July. I feel like school startup is all over the map these days, Ryan.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's some districts I know in Arizona. I think some of them go back last week of July. We have everything, all over the map. I think the latest to go back is in New York, maybe a couple of other states out on the East Coast. They're going back after Labor Day. I don't know if you remember, Tony, when we were kids, that always seemed to be when we would go back to school, be after Labor Day. And now it's just, more and more schools are starting earlier. I think also too, COVID threw some additional challenges in there with school districts trying to catch up. So everyone be safe out there. I know a lot of you are, if not in the throes of training and getting routes approved and everything, you're back on those buses, getting those kids to and from. So be safe.
Awesome. Well, we got some great headlines right after this. Today's tech tip is brought to you by IC Bus. The next generation can change everything. Looking for ways to improve your on-time performance and reduce operating costs? All IC Bus CE Series school buses come standard with factory-installed telematics devices, including a 5-year connectivity subscription. Customers gain access to on-command connection, an industry-leading remote diagnostic solution, providing data that is visible and easy to understand and actionable. With OCC, your district will have visibility to vehicle health and performance data at your fingertips, including EV-specific information like state of charge and estimated range. Learn more about standard capabilities of their connected vehicles at icbus.com. That's icbus.com. So we're back. All right, Ryan. I think the top story is probably the EPA. So Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, surprised us all, and they're trying to roll back Obama era, basically greenhouse gas emission regs, like remove them. I haven't read, I'm sure, the 300-page document, which maybe AI has read it for you to kind of sort through what is upside down on this. But I think you mentioned in your story on stnonline.com that I was reading that there wasn't any specific mention of school buses, but obviously in the trucking space and heavy duty engine space, that is very applicable to our market.
Absolutely. So what this is looking to do, essentially, it's a proposed rule that EPA announced. So as you mentioned, Administrator Lee Zeldin made the announcement of this proposed rule at an auto dealership in Indianapolis last week. What the administration is looking to do, and it's not a huge surprise, we know that anytime the term global warming or GHG is used, there's a lot of controversy around those. Essentially, what they're trying to do is they're trying to roll back what is referred to as the endangerment finding. So this goes back to 2009 with the Clean Air Act, specifically Section 202A. And essentially what it does is it claims that GHG is harmful to folks and it comes from transportation. So that's really what has been the basis for EPA developing their emission standards since then. So, the EPA now, it's under the Trump administration, of course. So it's pointed out several issues that it has with this endangerment finding. And it essentially says that it's based on unreasonably analyzed scientific data, which has changed, it argues, since 2009. So there's a lot more empirical data now, peer-reviewed studies, and that cast, quote, significant doubt on many of the critical premises and assumptions and conclusions in this endangerment finding. It mentions the harm on the economy. So obviously, we've talked a lot, Tony, about all of the vehicle manufacturers, the engine manufacturers needing to develop new technology. And we've seen it over and over again where when we have this new iteration of a rule that goes into effect, they have to meet certain criteria for reducing emissions. And it's been a sliding scale, really, moving forward, where they're trying to reduce more and more of these greenhouse gas emissions, what we see right now on the table in front of us, which the EPA has actually earlier this year said it is reviewing. So it's tied to this, is its GHG phase 3 rule that's set to go into effect in 2027. And that's, looking specifically at NOx, oxides of nitrogen. But, still you're adding more and more after treatment to diesel engines specifically, and it's really trying to push people more toward low or especially zero emissions vis-a-vis electric school buses. But we know there's propane out there as well. CNG, really, negligible at the most with any of them that are out there, since there's none that are being produced from the manufacturer currently. But we have other options like renewable diesel that we've talked a lot about that make a lot of sense for folks when you're looking to try to reduce that carbon footprint. So all of these things have been going on, and that costs a lot of money. So EPA has basically said, "Hey, we're pumping the brakes on this thing." So they're removing several parts to this that address motor vehicle and heavy duty emissions. So certainly there's a lot on the clean transportation side that are not happy about this. I know I saw that California and the California Resources Board is still moving forward or trying to with its advanced clean trucks rule, at least in the States. But certainly it's not a huge surprise that this came out. I think that it was a matter of time. And we'll see what transpires next. I don't know. I haven't seen if there's additional lawsuits. There's been so many lawsuits lately thrown about any of the Trump administration interpretations or executive orders or whatnot. But certainly, as we learned last month at STN Expo in West and Reno, the changes that we're seeing coming to school buses in terms of emissions and their engines, it's not changing. As I referred to before, these manufacturers have sunk millions and billions of dollars into these technologies, and just because the EPA comes out and says that they want to scuttle this endangerment finding, doesn't mean that all of a sudden everything that has been worked on is going to go away. So that was the big takeaway that I got from the panel that I moderated with. We had Cummins, Thomas Built Buses, IC Bus, Bluebird, and Ride, the BYD electric school bus manufacturer. So this doesn't change a lot, but I think certainly it makes folks feel good who are vehemently opposed to going to electric. I don't know anybody in the industry who I would say is vehemently opposed. I think there's a lot of folks that have a lot of concerns. But certainly we see things going forward, as I mentioned, in California, in New York. Last week as well, the most recent $200 million was made available with that part of that $4.2 billion Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act that was passed in 2022. So this $200 million, the latest pot that's going out to help school districts and school bus companies purchase electric school buses ahead of that mandate. There's still a mandate of 2027 where all new purchases need to be electric, essentially. With the state budget, as we reported earlier, the new state budget, it does have a provision in there that extends another year to 2029 to school districts that demonstrate challenges that they're having meeting that mandate. So states are still moving forward where there's that appetite, where they want electric school buses. Other states, though, that don't, that say, we want to stick with diesel. I think this maybe gives them some additional hope. But again, my big takeaway is that what we've heard is coming down the pike soon from school buses in terms of the powertrain and the engines. That's going to remain the same.
Yeah, I think, Ryan, when I heard at the session, I asked Francisco Lagunes and the Cummins team, and Paco is what he goes by. He's basically in charge of the Honda Highway division for Cummins, specifically in our field of work, right? So specifically, I asked, where are you guys at with the engine technology? And he's like, look, the EPA rule has not changed. We have engineered our product to meet the regulation specification. The R&D is done. This thing is like, the cake is mixed, it's made, it's in the oven, right? Like, it's about to come out. Like, there's no changing the recipe at this point. Like, the ingredients are in. So it's not really going to change the cost of the engines because they're already moving in that direction. And it's a motion that is not going to stop, right? So I don't know what they're getting at with respect to trying to walk back the law on this or change with the rulemaking. Also, another bigger concern, again, even though school buses is mentioned, student health is a big thing, right? Like, what is the effect of emissions on student health, student safety? That's been a big driver of electric too, right? Zero emissions of the tailpipe helps with kids, better development, brain development, all these other health things, right? And I mean, when you're in transportation, that's kind of ancillary. But regardless, we're serving the kids, we're serving the families. We want them to be in the safest, healthiest environment. And walking back the emission controls feels like we're going backwards. Now, granted, I saw it. It was like, we're going to save $50+ billion.
$54 billion, yeah.
By doing this. And I don't know how they're extrapolating those dollars, but for school bus, I'm not sure I'm seeing a savings, right? Like, I think like it's the manufacturers are rolling regardless. Now, in the heavy duty trucking market and some of these other spaces, there is a lot more competition, a lot more engine options available, where in school transportation, Cummins is like the only game in town almost for diesel, right? You have Detroit diesel on the Thomas product, which I'm sure has some take rate, not nearly what Cummins has by any stretch of the imagination, but there's that. And Bluebird has got the Roush partnership with their propane and gasoline solutions. And then Cummins is coming with their gasoline octane here in 26. So for me, it becomes, okay, as a school transportation professional, does it really change my life? Because I'm going to still order my buses. My costs are going to remain the same, if not go up, because the cost of goods is going up, the cost of labor, the cost of parts. Obviously, there's more deals happening around the world with tariffs, stabilizing Japan, Korea, Brazil, wherever auto parts.
The EU, that was a big one.
Yeah, monster, right? Wherever auto parts are coming from. And obviously our friends at Thomas are a subsidiary of Daimler, which is in Germany. So you've got so many kind of geopolitical things happening, which can affect bits and pieces and parts and metals. I mean, steel is probably one of the bigger ones, right? Because there's so much steel in school buses. I feel like that's one of the bigger line items. But again, when you dial it back to transportation, you're like, look, I can't change any of this. Like all this is kind of just on the peripheral. I'm just wherever the cards fall, they fall. And I got to pay the price as a school transportation professional to get the equipment I need to serve the families in our district, right? So, a lot of it's noise. But I mean, what's your take, Ryan? What do you think that the economics of this, is it really going to affect anything?
Yeah, I was looking for some quantification of that 54 billion, and I wasn't able to find it. They made that announcement though, and that's annually that they're talking about essentially manufacturing costs. So they're looking at, what they're saying is that by removing some of these controls or the mandates or regulations, that it's going to be easier for manufacturers to manufacture going forward without having to hit these more strict emission requirements. But to your point, Tony, the ship's already sailed on so much of this, and in terms of the health benefits, I think it is important to note that diesel, since going back to 2009, 2010, when really this kickstarted EPA's emissions regulations, and we've seen a whole host of them over that 16-year, 15-year period. Diesel is 90 to 95%. I think Paco Lagunas at Cummins said cleaner today than it was 15, 20 years ago. So when you're talking about rolling back these requirements, again, I don't think we're going to suddenly see just the OEMs start stripping all this stuff out of their engines or their vehicles, number one. But number two, I think that the intent of what the Clean Air Act was trying to do with transportation emissions, again, we're 15, 16 years down the road. This stuff is not just going to be undone. So, I think that, you could say, well, was a lot of this done for show? Yeah, perhaps. I think that, President Trump ran on certain platforms and he promised certain things, and he's been very adamant and transparent to the point of saying, hey, I'm going to deliver on, if not all of my campaign promises, as many as I can. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. But in the end, today's diesel school buses are 90 to 95% cleaner than they were in years past. We don't have these big plumes of black smoke coming out, at least from the newer school buses. I know that maybe a bigger issue for folks to talk about is there's still a lot of older school buses out there on the road. And certainly maybe not at school districts, because a lot of states have replacement cycles. Or school districts, will have a certain program that they follow, whether it's based on age or mileage. But I see, at least, when I was living in the LA area, I would see a lot of what I would call mom and pop contractors. They're not the big names that a lot of us know, so they're more local. And I would see some very old school buses out there. I would still see some smoke coming out. And I wouldn't stop and, find out exactly what the model year was, but I would imagine these are probably 15, 20-year-old school buses. So they're still out there. And I think a lot of the news cycle has talked about how all of these school buses are gone now. Well, maybe a lot of the school districts, but there's still a lot of privately owned and operated older school buses that need to be addressed. So on one hand, yes, today is way cleaner for the kids than it was. I think for the most part, kids who are riding school buses have pretty clean air. Now, of course, if it's an electric school bus or even a propane school bus, those are cleaner, and there are some, you can get into the wonkiness of propane versus diesel, and propane emissions are better in some respects than others. But I think the end or the bottom line here is that school buses are cleaner today because of what this Clean Air Act had done. And by reversing things now, I think you're right, Tony. It's not going to move the needle a whole heck of a lot, but I think it's making good on a campaign promise, and I think trying to show that this administration is looking out for big business and for consumers as well. So I think that's really what this comes down to.
Yeah, I think probably more important is what is the outcome of the clean school bus program and the funding, right? That's looming. Obviously, we got some feedback from the EPA. We're still waiting for more details on what that program is going to entail, but it sounds to me like the program is going to remain intact, and it's just going to have a redistribution of funding to diversify the fuel mix, which again, there's not that many choices, right? You got propane and you got electric, and then you've got diesel and gas. So I doubt diesel and gas are going to be in the mix, but definitely propane will be in the mix. So we'll see if the cost delta is helped, right? Because I think that's the bigger point. With electric, can you make it pencil out? And I think the big argument has always been, how does the math work out in terms of the cost of fuel, that CapEx versus OpEx cost? And when you have such a heavy upfront CapEx cost, how do you sell that to your school board? How do you present that business case? And maybe it's not right for everyone. And I think that, in the last couple of years, it's been moving so quickly. People are uncomfortable. And now things have slowed down significantly from you have to do this, you have to do that. There's not as much, I almost call it pressure to make quick or snap decisions. Now we can take a more methodical approach to analyzing what is the right fuel type. And there's a lot of data out there, right? Our friend Craig Beaver, Transportation Director of the Year up in Oregon, Beaverton, he has an immense amount of data that puts us at ease a little bit and saying, hey, look, here's some real world data comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges or apples to lemons, like whatever you're getting, right? It's just, you're seeing a more broad representation of the different fuel types from operators that are trying to provide information to you, nation, to just have the most information possible and make informed decisions. So I appreciate Craig doing those sorts of things to help further the industry along and help people really make more informed decisions.
Absolutely. And, with the Clean School Bus Program, I think you're right. And we've talked about this. There has been some conjecture out there that propane is going to get a much larger slice of the pie. When you're looking at, up till now, the over $2 billion or so that has been awarded, 95%, something like that, has gone to zero emissions or electric school buses. So I think we're going to see that switch up a bit. And what will be interesting to see, since I think we've talked about this too recently, with only one propane game in town now, can Bluebird and Roush, keep up with that demand? If we suddenly see that, there's more of a 50-50 split suddenly, and you're going from, 2,500 propane school buses, give or take, manufactured in a year, to the EPA Clean School Bus Program alone funding, another, 10,000. What's that look like? So I think that it will remain to be seen, and it will be interesting to see what happens with that. But as we talked about last week, I think on the podcast, the fact that EPA finally said something, they had gone dark for so long. And we had seen a lot of things going on in the peripheral, especially with the Lion Electric school bus situation, and with its bankruptcy proceedings, or CCA in Canada as they call it, and then maybe being auctioned off, and now it's been acquired to just basically supply Quebec, and all that stuff going on, and trying to reach out to EPA and they had no comment, and would point us over to the Department of Justice and they had no comment. The fact that they came out with this and said, hey, additional information is coming also on that 2024 rebate program. So that's the one, if you think way back to January that closed. So that's forthcoming. So we've been wondering about what's going on with that. And there was really no other news, but it just gives that glimmer of hope that there's going to be some more funding coming so that we can exhaust that final $2 billion or so that's remaining in that 5-year program. But I think to reiterate what EPA's intent was, and I think this bleeds back over to the end of the Biden administration. You were talking about the cost, Tony, of electric school buses, and does it pencil out? And we got to keep in mind that gone are the days of a free electric school bus. Now maybe you can get close to that with stacking grants, your state grants. Certainly I think places like California and New York, if you're also getting a clean school bus rebate or grant, that's a lot more feasible. But really, for a lot of school districts nationwide, the reality for them is that this is covering the incremental cost. And that's what EPA has said. And this again goes back to the Biden administration, and have not had an opportunity to hear what their current viewpoint is on this with the new administration. But you're seeing, an average diesel school bus, let's just say, $150,000, and that's we know that's increased, and that's maybe there's some options on there, but give or take, let's just use that figure and say you're getting a $300,000 or a $425,000 electric school bus. Well, there you do the math, and if you're looking at maybe getting $325,000 from the EPA, then maybe that's basically the incremental cost. And then again, maybe you can stack it with some state grants and get that bus for free or close to it. But then you also have the infrastructure. So, something else that I think is at play here, and we've talked about with the EPA Clean School Bus Program, is there has been a lot of discussion in the industry when this program goes away, and we thought that it was going to go away sooner over this past 6 months because we just didn't know. It again seems like it's going to be going forward and awarding the rest of the money, but basically, will the absence of that federal grant or federal rebates, will that reduce the price? There was some discussion at ST Expo West last summer around that topic in an OEM panel. And the consensus was that they thought that it probably would. So you have all this, propped up money, and that inflates things. So will we see electric school buses come down like we've been hoping for and we've been told it's going to happen, and we just haven't seen it? We've seen the opposite, just increase. I think a big reason has been because of the Clean School Bus Program. So it will be interesting to see once that money exhausts, or as we get closer to that point, seeing electric school buses become more cost effective across the board. And we know we're seeing the technology advances. We're seeing advances with batteries, advances with the electric drives, that's making things more efficient. We already know that there's a huge reduction in the number of parts that are necessary for an electric school bus compared to an internal combustion engine. So yeah, things still need to get penciled out, and there's some districts that are way ahead. And you mentioned, like Craig Beaver and Beaverton School District in Oregon. That information is so valuable. So I know he has it on his website, so you can Google that, Beaverton School District in Oregon. It's just outside of Portland, and right there on the transportation page, he's got all the data that you can imagine. And he wants to get, and he has all the OEMs. He wants to get. He wants to be getting electric school buses from all the OEMs so he can run them and he can compare them, like you mentioned, Tony, apples to apples. And he also wants to have all the other fuels as well. So, it's a learning curve, absolutely, but something that I think will pencil out in the end. But again, it's going to come down to range and where electric school buses make the most sense and where they just don't. And that's why we're going to continue to need all the fuels available to get all the kiddos to and from.
So guys, the August issue just dropped. If you haven't gone to the STN website and checked it out, brand new issue. You'll notice our friends in South Carolina are there on the cover. It's a little more maintenance fleet focused. Ryan, we had coordinated with our friend Mike Bowman over in South Carolina to get his crew of superstar technicians. We've got the Garage Stars featured in the August issue. So much great content in there this month. Any highlights or recommendations for somebody who's wants to just go to their first story? They're like, I want to read about this.
Read it all. That's what I always tell people.
Love that. I love it.
You just start at the front and we'll just work your way back. I mean, yeah, there's some great editorial in there, Tony. Like you mentioned, it's our fleet management issue. We have the gentleman from South Carolina Department of Education gracing the cover, looking very official, and the front line. I think that's what we call it on the cover. So many times we talk about the school bus drivers as being the front line of student transportation. Absolutely, they are, but just as important are the folks in the shop that are maintaining those buses, servicing those buses, inspecting those buses. So South Carolina, and we have 10 others. We have 7 other individuals, and something new this year, 3 teams. So South Carolina is one of those teams. So head over to stnonline.com, head over to our magazine section, read that. You can see who all the winners are. We're talking about facilities as well, and we've been looking at that for several years now, but kind of evolving that and looking at so much of the conversation has been like, oh, brand new facilities, and we've talked about like these hundreds of millions of dollar new facilities. That you just, kind of bulldoze it down and then build it up. And certainly there still is that. Our friends in Washoe County School District in Reno, they're doing that right now with their main transportation facility. Really looking forward to seeing that because it's going to have 8 bays. And of course, we run a lot of our national school bus inspection training out of that facility. We're actually using right now we've been using their south facility that has 3 bays, but maybe fingers crossed next summer we'll be able to work with Washoe on that new transportation facility. But a lot of folks are actually renovating. And so the article looks at, what are the benefits of that compared to, going out, because you have to go out and get to bond a lot of times to get some big, huge new facility created or built. Maybe not if you're going to do some renovations, still costs a lot of money. But just looking at some districts that have experience with both. Because again, money is tight. We know that school districts nationwide are getting hit hard by the budgets. A lot of the states are reacting to a lot of the uncertainty coming from Washington, D.C. We know that we have federal funding that needs to remain in place, but in what agency and in what mode or method will that money be delivered? A lot of talk about going to a block grant where it's just like, okay, state, here's all your money, you figure it out. Instead of it, being parceled out. So there's still a lot of anxiety out there, and we've seen a lot of constriction in the marketplace. I've been reading a lot of articles looking at superintendents and the issues they're having. So money is definitely at issue right now. So, and when you're talking about maintenance, of course, buying parts and how you're specifying that. We have an article on parts as well. And then, again, not to be remiss, STN Expo West. Last month, we have a good photo page that you can catch up, and you can catch all the links and all the videos and interviews and articles that we did on site over at stnonline.com.
Yeah, good stuff, Ryan. And also want to give a shout out again. I know we mentioned it last week to our friends at Suffolk Transportation for winning the NSTA Contractor of the Year. We got a great photo up on the website right now with Tommy Smith and John Corrado Jr., I guess, or
Johnny.
Yeah, it goes by Johnny. His dad's John Corrado too.
Yeah, there's like three of them, and they all have different middle names. So, but yeah, congratulations to Suffolk. I know they were on stage with you a couple years ago out in Reno. They won a Green Fleet Award for their adoption of electric school buses out there, really leading the way out there. We were talking earlier about New York's mandate. So they're operating out there on Long Island. So one of the larger school bus companies out there in New York, in the New York City area. So congratulations to them. Congratulations again to Karina Noble, Senior Vice President of Communications over at National Express. And National Express, we've talked about they have a new owner, I2. So we're looking forward to getting a lot more information on that from the execs over there at National Express very soon. So, and of course, you can see all the winners of those NSTA awards. I know you were there, Tony. So you got us some good photos as well. But you can head over to stonline.com once again and find that article.
Great. All right. We're going to get to your interview with Nashawn in just a sec. We're back from ST and Expo West, and what a blast the TransFinder team had meeting everybody. They held several classes, had an amazing response to their ride and drive, showcasing their award-winning driver app, Wayfinder. One of the highlights was the top transportation teams panel discussion. The leaders of the 6 winning teams demonstrated just why their teams won. These were thoughtful leaders who listened to their teams, made changes to show how they cared, and yes, even had to make difficult decisions. As TransFinder's CEO Antonio Civitella said, it is so rewarding to honor these men and women who truly do heroic work every day. You can see how much this recognition means to these teams, and that's what makes it all worth the effort. TransFinder started the Top Transportation Teams program in 2023, and it continues to get bigger and better every year. Learn more by visiting toptransportationteams.com to learn more about how your company can join the program. Also visit transfinder.com.
All right, Nation, let's welcome to the podcast stage Nashawn Craig. He's the Assistant Director of Transportation and Fleet for Taylor Schools in Michigan. That's southwest suburb of Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. Nashawn, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Good to be here.
It was great seeing you and meeting you finally in person last month at ST and Expo West out in Reno, Nevada. I know we had been on LinkedIn, and you have been providing us with some great photography probably over the last year or so. I know that you were originally sent them to Tony Corpin, our president and publisher. And come to find out, in addition to working in transportation, you are a photographer. Mm-hmm. So, and this wasn't just you out there taking shots, and this is actually what you do on the side of your transportation work out there in the Detroit area.
Yes. It's one of my hobbies. I kind of blended my two interests, photography and the people transportation industry. And, I'd like to think that magic comes out of it. So I'd definitely like to provide those, especially, if it's like a STN related event or just anything like that. Even not asked, I just like to, it's just in my nature to kind of just go ahead and start snapping away, because that's what I do.
That's what you do. Yeah, exactly. That's what we do too. So we appreciate that. And it's interesting. So, I'll get into your background here in a bit, but you do photography for the Michigan Association for People Transportation as well?
Yes. Yep. I'm the photographer, social media guy, technology. I do quite a bit for them, but yep, I do all the social media, do the pictures for the conference, any type of events. I actually just got back from the Train the Trainer event that I was taking photos at on Wednesday. So yep, I do everything photo wise for them and video wise.
Awesome. And of course, your very own Katrina Morris, the executive director for MAPT. You were out there in Reno and saw her get the Peter J. Grandolfo Memorial Award of Excellence especially for her work championing students with special needs and disabilities. So we had pretty large Michigan contingent out there. It just so happened it worked out that way. No one knew that Katrina was going to win, but it was great to have all our friends from Michigan. And I think helping that a little bit, getting the ability to get all those folks out there is that a lot of you don't start school until next month in September.
That is correct.
You guys, I think, go back. Taylor starts on September 2nd?
Yes. Yep. The day after Labor Day is usually when we start every year.
Okay. So I'm sure you're right now probably in the throes of route prep or finalization, probably training, all the in-services. So your role over there at Taylor, in a short amount of time, you've gone from a school bus monitor, I think, for a different school district, just as early as or as recently as 2019. And then you transitioned it to a school bus driver for Taylor around 2021 or so, 2020. And that was like right in the middle of COVID.
Yep.
And here you are, in a span of 5-6 years, you're an assistant director there at Taylor. Tell us how you got started in the industry. What made you gravitate toward student transportation?
So from a young age, I've always had just a very strong interest in school buses, as many do in trucks and, tractors, things like that. So from a very young age, I kind of just gravitated towards them. I always say, my bus drivers when I was younger in Romulus, they treated me like nobody else did. I call them my second family. So I think that kind of helped as well. So that's even kind of when my photography started too. I was in school, just remember, the bus nerd in me just taking pictures of buses because that's just what I did. And, I ended up doing yearbook and all that. So that's really where the photography part started. So, and then after that, I just kind of knew that the transportation was my calling. I've always just gravitated towards it. Even during COVID, when COVID first started, I tried to kind of veer away from it a little bit, not on purpose, but because, many buses weren't running and, other things were going on, things were closed down. So, I was finding little jobs here and there, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I did transportation. So when I graduated in 2019, I became a bus monitor for Romulus, like you said, and did that for about a year or so and decided that I wanted to drive. So I came over to Taylor, and we do both maintenance and transportation over here. So I was doing both. And I enjoyed it. I loved every minute of driving, dealing with the students, dealing with the other drivers, everything like that. It was a great job. Driving the bus even, I just, coming back on a long day, heading back to the yard, that's your time of peace when the bus is empty after you get all the kids safely home, the accomplishment. So, drove a couple years, still driving. And, the opportunity came forward for the assistant director, and I put in for it. Had a lot of people pushing me and, kind of trying to help me and suggesting that I do it, said I'm perfect for the job. And even when I didn't always think so. So I definitely went ahead and put in for it, and I got it.
Awesome. And so, talking about COVID a little bit, that's quite a time to cut your teeth.
Yes.
Driving a school bus. And obviously, as you mentioned, there weren't as many school buses running, at least on routes, at least for a while. There was probably a lot of food delivery. I know some school districts were delivering Wi-Fi, whether it be in the bus or just to devices. Is that what some of your work was at that time?
Yeah. So when we first started, so I got my license at the very end of 2020, I think December. And then, as 2021 came around, we were doing food deliveries. We were seeing special needs students starting to come back into the rotation because a lot of them unfortunately didn't handle, being at home very well because they like the scheduling and they like getting to go to school, get to see their friends. They're used to that, doing that. So we did do that. We delivered lunches. quite a few times a week. So that's kind of where I got a lot of training. And I like to say that that was probably some of the best training that I got driving the bus, because we have a lot of dead end streets here. So getting those lunches down those streets, in the middle of winter, it was fun.
Oh, yeah.
It was great training for me. So I started driving at the age of 19 is when I got my CDL. So that was, good time. And I think it kind of worked out too when the kids did start coming back for me, just kind of, because if they see a younger person, they might try to take advantage. But since it was COVID times, we were required to wear a mask when we were, driving. I had my sunglasses, my hat. They really couldn't tell how that was at the time. So it kind of just worked out in my favor that I kind of started during COVID. And it also was nice too, because like you said, there was less kids. So, you kind of got to eased into it, as more students started coming back. Whereas, most people they're here, if they start at the beginning of the school year, their buses are full, so it was definitely, I think, one of the best times that I could think of to start driving, especially at such a young age like I did.
And then you became a dispatcher.
Yes.
Correct. So I'm sure you, as you mentioned, you're still driving. Most folks, and we'll talk about the quote unquote driver shortage in a bit. But I know even with that, a lot of folks in management, supervisory roles, a lot of directors are still driving. But you transitioned into dispatching. So I imagine, again, you were still driving when you needed to.
Yep.
How did that transition occur? And was that something that was like the next logical step for you in your career?
It definitely kind of worked out. The timing was just perfect. We had a few situations, or we had a situation where the entire office retired at the same time, with the exception of one person. So there was 4 or 5 people that all, they had over 100 years of combined service in the people transportation industry. So, when that kind of happened, and there was a few other situations that I was kind of able to move in and kind of, start the dispatching role. And I enjoyed every minute of it. The routing, it helps, especially when you were a driver beforehand, because the streets, where a bus can go, good and bad ways to go. You just have that knowledge, where a bus can fit and where it can't fit. So it definitely, it worked out great. I loved every minute of it. And I'm still doing a little bit of that work, in my new role as well. So I do enjoy that. But yes, it was definitely an easy transition, and I'm happy that it happened.
And in your current role as assistant director, so you're overseeing the school bus drivers and dispatch. Mm-hmm. So it helps that you've been in and still are in those seats.
Yes.
So that you're not coming in this, quote unquote, young kids telling me what to do. They know, hey, Nashawn's been here and he's done it. He knows what the job entails. He knows what I go through.
Yes. Yep. And even to, add more to that, I also, participated in the rodeos. I got first place in my region rodeo a couple years back. So I think that kind of helps, just being able to do a little bit of everything, being able to jump in the seat when you need to, being able to route a route when you need to, just being able to do everything that you can to help, because people get sick, people retire, people quit. As we all know, we're all short staffed. So being able to be versatile and be able to do everything that you can to help make the department run smooth, I think is just the best way to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. And with that too, the juggle, because of your age, again, I don't like to, use age but we know that is just part of human nature.
Yes.
But being able to balance that relationship where, like you said, you guys are a family there, and a lot of these folks are probably your friends, but then all of a sudden you transition to, okay, you're now the supervisor, and you're maybe supervising somebody who's been there for 10, 15 years.
Right.
How do you handle that? How do you approach that?
I mean, it can be a little tough at times, but I just think having that understanding that there is that boundary, we can be friends outside of work, but even at work we can be friends. But when it's time for business, it's time for business. We're all here for a reason. We're here to get the kids to and from school safely every single day, and we have to get that done. That's what we're here for, So it's kind of just have to look at it that way, when there's some drama going on or just whatever the case is, that's not what we're here for. We're here to get these kids where they got to go safely.
Absolutely.
So I think just making sure everybody understands that and everybody's on the same page with that is the easiest way Because I have gotten a little bit of that, but again, a lot of the stuff tends to be things that aren't even related to, being on the bus or getting the kids to and from school. So I think just that reminder definitely solves a lot of that.
Office or school bus politics at play. Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yes.
So looking at Taylor's operation, so how many students are you transporting daily total?
We have just over 5,000.
5,000. How many are students with disabilities that have an IEP?
Quite a few. I don't know the total number off the top of my head, but I would say probably about between a tenth and a quarter of it.
Okay. And what's the size of your fleet then for 5,000 students?
So we have about 55 buses and 46 runs.
Okay.
And that's including both special education and regular education.
Okay. So with school again starting up here in basically a month, I mean, as we're recording this, it's the 1st of August. So you're going back September 2nd. So where are you guys right now specifically? You guys have your routes developed, or you're still doing the student registration, getting that all worked out? Obviously, probably doing a lot of in-service training with drivers, or has that not started yet?
So we have started looking at the regular education routes. The special education, the student lists usually come in a little bit midway through August, so that kind of holds us back a little bit. But the regular ed routes for the most part stay the same, with the exception of like students moving up. If it's like a one-person stop, then obviously we have to move it from, like if they go from elementary to middle school, switch that stop over. So we kind of always look at that over the entire summer. We're waiting, like I said, for the special needs students to come in. We usually do the driver bid and things like that towards the end of the month, once all the routes and building jobs are finished. So that's usually when that happens. But yeah, we do trainings, and we do things like that throughout the entire summer, training new drivers, things like that. So.
Gotcha. So looking back at last school year, and as we're looking forward to the next school year, are there particular challenges that stand out that Taylor really worked to address for this oncoming year? Are there opportunities afoot for you guys that you guys are looking to take advantage of as you flip the calendar and head into the 25-26 school year?
There's not too much new going on. Just like we've talked about, the driver shortage is an ongoing problem. We're working on trying to get more drivers in the door. We got people retiring. With the way that we're set up, our staff is maintenance and transportation put together. So we have a total of, although we only have 46 routes, we have a total of, I believe it's 112 jobs within our, where our drivers division is. So there's the drivers, the maintenance, custodial, the HVAC, the plumbers. We do it all in our, in the drivers division. So, if a couple people retire, even from the custodial side, if they're higher up seniority, that could kind of throw things in a loop, because people will go for those higher jobs that typically the higher seniority people will get, which would then have us lose a few drivers in the long run. So which the setup is good, because everybody's required to keep their CDL. So people in the buildings at custodial, we could call them and say, hey, we need a driver today. Is there any way you could come drive? So that definitely is a huge help in terms of covering routes, because we had about 4 routes open last year for the most of the year. So that kind of helped, along with the mechanics helping. But I think, like I said, I think the driver shortage is the probably the biggest struggle. That's just an ongoing, coming up with ideas of how we can get people in the door, whether it be like commercials, videos, using my photography skills, just whatever the case is, banners. I've created a few banners. So we're just trying to, contact another district, seeing what they're doing, speaking with my peers, speaking with Katrina and Brandy from MAPT, Rhonda from MAPT, just seeing what they do or what they have done in the past, so we can use it for us.
Absolutely. And with that said, pay always comes into the conversation.
Yes.
Can you tell us what your starting pay, or maybe there's a sliding scale, but what would you, or if say I was a driver applicant, I'm walking off the street, I don't have my CDL, I got to get it. What would be the starting pay? Do you guys, does Taylor Schools pay for the CDL, pay for the training time? How would that look to me walking off the street saying, hey, Nashawn, I'm interested?
So we are a union, so it's all union negotiated. I believe it's between 20 and 21. But we also have full benefits because all of our employees are 8-hour employees, 40 hours a week, 12 months a year. So they have full insurance. So definitely, I think that's kind of the big, we always kind of tell people we might not be the highest paying in the area, but it definitely works out in the amount of benefits you get, the retirement, the pension, because we're still a district ran operation, the amount of paid sick time that you get off, the amount of paid holidays, because we get the full 2 weeks for Christmas paid, and a lot of people don't get that.
Oh, nice.
Spring break is fully paid. So basically, the way we're set up is it's either for a holiday, you're either paid and off or you're here working. So you're getting paid regardless. So, that's kind of, those are the few things that we kind of tell people, hey, it's not a lot of districts are like that anymore. I know back in the day that was a big thing to do, but now most places have kind of separated them, transportation and maintenance separately. So I think that's kind of a good thing for us. Cause like I said, you get those benefits. So pay, definitely, we're always working for higher pay for our drivers. They definitely deserve more. Drivers, they're on the front lines. The things that drivers go through on a day-to-day basis, the things that you have to do all at the same time, especially if you're a sub driver, reading a route sheet, dealing with the students that you may not know. You're operating a several ton vehicle on a road. The conditions, we're in Michigan, you could be in the middle of a snowstorm. There's just a lot to it. So we're definitely always hoping and begging for more pay for our drivers. Not even just here, but all around the state, all around the country. The drivers deserve more. So do the monitors. Everybody in transportation, we all have our part in getting the kids to and from school, and I think it's easily overlooked, and it's unfortunate and shouldn't be, but it just tends to happen.
Well, it comes down to budgetary issue.
Yes.
Right. It's working through your director of transportation, Jack Gerard. He probably, takes the lead on most of that. But I'm sure you're looking at that. So there's a lot of, budgetary needs and constraints, right?
Yes. Yep.
Do you know about how much of transportation, how much of that of the budget of the total school district budget? I've seen it could be anywhere between like 5 and 15% of like the total district budget. So that's not a lot, and
Right.
The money always wants to go to the classroom, right? They always want to make sure that the money goes to the classroom first. So from your standpoint in managing the drivers, and again, you're overseeing drug and alcohol testing, the training, the background checks as well, and kind of, balancing all this stuff. What do you need to do in your job to provide your director with the information he needs to then go to the superintendent or the school board and say, hey, we need more money to pay more drivers, or we need more money to buy more buses. We see buses becoming they've been getting more expensive.
Yes.
Kind of take me through that a little bit.
So a lot of, like I said, for the drivers, the pay is union negotiated,
unionized. Yeah.
So that has a big factor. And to be honest, we don't sit down in that. More so we give our suggestions, we give our say, but the union will sit down with the superintendent, the finance director, and they'll kind of negotiate the wages based off of that. But like I said, we give our suggestions. Hey, we need more drivers. We're short drivers, so when you're going into these negotiations, just keep that in mind, that, sometimes you might have to give a little to get a little. So for that side, we don't really take care of that as much, but other budget things, getting new buses, that's always can be a struggle, depending on budgets and things like that. So, it just kind of depends on exactly what we're talking about budget wise. But yeah, for the driver's side, we don't take care of that part.
What about for technology? So technology needs, we've seen that grow by leaps and bounds for several decades now, but especially we've seen this acceleration over the last, 5 years. AI enabled, everything is AI enabled now, video cameras to routing systems, telematics, fleet diagnostics, whatnot. What are your biggest technology, wants or wish list? What do you guys have already? And would you like to see more of in terms of technology?
So the school district actually just signed a contract with the company Bus Patrol for the stop arm camera. So that's a big win, I believe. The safety of the kids is the number one. It's not that we want to punish people, but on the same token, we want people to understand, why they need to stop, what can happen if you don't stop. That's kind of the goal with that. So that's kind of our newest thing on the horizon. We've kind of been delayed with a few technology things. We do have routing software, we do have that, but cameras didn't really come into play, period, really until, I mean, they had cameras, but 2019 is when the entire fleet got cameras. So, there's a little struggles when it comes to budgets and things like that. So we're kind of behind on a little bit of things, but I think the Bus Patrol, that's our next big win, and I'm glad that we were able to have that partnership. So they will be installing the camera soon, I believe, to have them ready for the school year. So we're very excited for that.
What are some of the things that you would like to see, or maybe you're hearing from the drivers? Because again, you're overseeing them. If they're coming to you and saying, "Hey, Nashawn, we would love to have this."
Right. I think the things that I would love to see, like, I know there's the first light signs out there, if, on our next purchase, if we can look into getting those. I feel like the visibility is a huge thing, especially in the morning. Because I mean, how many people hit a bus and say, "Oh, I didn't see it"? Well, it's big and yellow, but okay, you didn't see it. So let's see what we can do to fix that. So that's something that I would like. The first light school bus signs, the signs on the back of the bus that a lot of buses have. I forget the company that creates them, but they when the amber lights are flashing, it says caution stopping, and then when the red lights are flashing, there's a stop sign that says stop, do not pass.
Yeah.
I've always loved those. I would love to see those on our next order as well. Just anything to make us more visible. Just for the safety of our students, make sure that they can see, make sure they know what's going on. But those are kind of my wishes for the moment.
Yeah, it might be the Safe Fleet signage, on the back, the LEDs, certainly. And what about, it'd be remiss not to ask you this, electric school buses. So I know that there was a big push in the state, and there was a big pilot program that started, it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And now we've seen a little bit of a change, especially coming from the federal landscape, Michigan being one of the states also that has followed the California Air Resources Board guidelines, and that's kind of been thrown into limbo by Congress. Where do you guys stand with electric? Do you have any? Is there any interest? What's the latest in terms of what Taylor is looking at in terms of electric school buses?
So we do not currently have any. A lot of the last few orders, because of budgetary issues, we've gotten used buses. So we haven't gotten anything new lately. We did look into that. I know the older buses that we wanted to get off the road, the grant at the time said that they had to get a certain amount of miles every year and things like that. And the buses we were looking at getting rid of were our spare buses, and it didn't fall into that category. So that unfortunately we weren't able to do that.
Yeah.
But we did have an interest last year. Just the kind of the constraints that it had, it didn't really, because we have the way that our yard is set up now, there's like no electricity on the yard itself. So we don't have like plug-in post even for the diesels. So it would be a huge infrastructure investment. We lose power quite often. So we just haven't found the right grant or the right, funding for it at this time. But we are definitely always looking into it, because we all know, I think that, eventually that would be a big part of the industry and, where the industry is going towards. So we are always keeping our eyes open for new opportunities.
So what fuels are you using? Are you diesel, propane, gasoline?
We have a mixture of diesel and gasoline.
Okay. So, and like we talked about, or I mentioned earlier, those buses are getting more expensive as well. It's not simply the electric school buses. So
right.
A lot of budgetary constraints out there. But it sounds like, you guys, especially it's really interesting to know that you have that guaranteed 8 hours for all your employees, and that everyone's required to get a CDL. So that certainly helps. I guess lastly, I'll ask you about, kind of sticking with that, the shortages. We talked about pay, culture. I know, I was talking about Trina Morris Katrina, she's really big on that. And I think in the school district, the service district, I should say, that she ran and overseeing several districts, transportation, culture was a big win for her in keeping drivers. And you've mentioned that you're very much like a family. Talk a little bit about the culture there at Taylor School District and some of the values that you guys have for your employees.
Yeah, so I think, again, with everybody here having the same mentality, our goal is to get the kids to and from school. You can have a good time, while you're here, enjoy each other's presence, laugh, get the job done. And that's all that everybody, and have a good time while you're here. That's what counts. So we definitely, we want all of our employees to be happy to come to work. I think that's always a big thing. Even, I've worked for companies where it's like, oh, I got to go to work. I'm not, I don't want to, you don't want people to feel like that. You want people to know that they're going to come into work. They're going to have a good time. They're going to laugh. They're going to enjoy their time here and get their job done and care for the kids and, and just be great at their job, but also just be a great person. That's, we have so many people like that. And I think that's just that makes it. That's why, I enjoy working here. That's why, I kind of came over here. I had a few friends of mine that were previous employees at my previous employer that they came over here mainly to kind of continue their state retirement because the previous place was they ended up privatizing. So their state retirement paused. And they told me, they said, it's a great place to work. The hours are great. The people are great. Now's the time, if you want, definitely up to you. But, this is what we're seeing and we love it here. So just come on over if you want. And I did. And I'm happy that I did. It's a great place to be, a great place to work. Even I think I'm gonna give you a quick story if you don't mind. Before I even started here, I was in high school and I kind of, I had the interest in buses, so I was kind of making my rounds. I'm a big on networking, love networking, and so I went to each district around me and kind of met the supervisor at every district, and they'd introduced me to some drivers, mechanics, whatever, just kind of show me their operations, give me a tour and whatnot. And when I came here, it felt different. Like, I walked in, everybody treated me like a family. The secretary asked, "Oh, are you new here? Are you going to be starting?" I said, "No, I'm in high school still." And she's like, "Well, when you graduate, come on over. We have a job for you. We would love to have you. And, once you turn of age," because I graduated at 17. So she was like, "Well, when you turn 18, because in the state of Michigan, you can legally get your CDL at 18, we'll train you to drive and, we'll get you going." And, I just felt the love. I felt the care. I felt I loved it, and I think the boss at the time, his name was Steve Woodworth, and he great guy, an amazing guy, still comes back to help us from time to time for like the rodeos and things like that. Amazing guy, would do anything for you. So I think that's kind of what the culture really, I think, is what kind of had me gravitate to come over here. So I believe it's good. It's good here. Great people, great time. Good place to be.
That's outstanding. Well, I think you've been out to our TSD conference, but if not, you have to come down. You're a rodeo winner a couple years ago. We have that rodeo out there. So you need to grab a partner and come down and give it a try. So thanks so much, Nashawn. It's great to learn more about you. Really appreciate it. Keep snapping those photos. Love to see. Is there anywhere the nation can find your photos?
Yeah, so I'm on social media, and actually, I guess I'm kind of glad you said that because it kind of relates back to just how it all started. My photography company, its name is 0312 Photography. The website is www.0312photography.com, and they can find me on social media, 0312 Photography. But the 0312 Photography comes from a childhood bus that I actually bought from the school district. I kind of count that bus for being part of the sparking of my interest for school buses. And the buses just meant so much in my life that I kind of use it for everything, the number. So like I said, I own it now. I try to use it for good in the world. I try to, I do a lot of nonprofit things with it, stuff the buses, canned food drives, toy drives, things like that during the holidays. I get it all decorated and work with the city of Romulus, and we do some things. So that's good. And I also try to promote school bus safety with it, videos, PSAs, photographs, graphics, things like that, just to, again, the safety of the kids, trying to make people see the bus, know what the stop sign means. Because unfortunately around the country, as we all know, the part about when to stop for the stop sign can vary a little bit in terms of, like, in the state of Michigan on a 5-lane open road, you have to stop all the way across. But I know some states it's, if you're on the other side of the road, you don't have to stop, which I kind of think that should be something that should be the same throughout the nation. So that is not a confusing factor for motorists. But again, just promoting that school bus safety, just trying to do a little good in the world. And but yeah, so that's where they can find my photography. And yeah.
So it's zero. Is it spelled out ZERO 12?
No, it's the numbers. It's
the numbers.
Yep, the numbers 0312. Yep,
0312. Okay, we'll look that up. Well, thanks again, Nashawn. Really appreciate it. Great meeting you in person out in Reno last month. And like I said, looking forward to seeing you at future conferences, maybe TSD. I don't know. Like I said, get out the get your partner, or even if you don't have a partner, you can come out and then register for it, and they'll assign you one. So
okay. All right. Sounds good.
All right.
I'll see what Katrina's doing.
Yep, absolutely. Katrina will be there. I know that. So thanks again. Best of luck in getting ready for the new school year, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
A special thanks to Mr. Ryan Gray, Nashawn. We appreciate you guys all for being part of the podcast and sharing your thoughts today. And we also appreciate our sponsors very much, TransFinder and IC Bus. Make sure you guys give them some love. Let them know you heard about them on the STN podcast, because, guys, we need to love on our sponsors and business partners too. So make sure you do that for us. Also go to stnonline.com for all the latest news and analysis in the school transportation industry. And also a reminder that TSD conference super early bird special ends on Friday, 8/8. Save 33% on your registration. If you guys are interested in special needs training, this conference has it all for you. I know you have special needs routes out there, guys. So get the best in training, hands-on training, legal advice. We got it all. In Dallas, Texas, November 6th to the 11th. Go check it out, tsdconference.com. All right, nation, make sure to share this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to pods. Get it out to all your friends in your community, social media. Share it with colleagues. We want to make sure and get the word out on all things happening in school transportation. Nation, we love you. We'll see you next week.